Welcome to the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast with career advice, uplifting stories, and life lessons from K12 educators just like you. And now, your host, Mr. Joseph Williams III.
What's up, K12 Nation? This is Joseph, and welcome to the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast, where I get to interview amazing K12 educators from the U.S. and the world every single month. Today we have on the show Mrs. Christi Crump. Christi is from Columbus, Ohio, by way of Lithonia, Georgia. She received her bachelor's degree from Valdosta State University and her master's degree from Georgia Southern University. Christi comes from a family of educators and administrators. Christi began her career as a first-grade teacher at McCorkle Elementary in the Chicago public school system. Later in her career, she began working as a Title I academic administrator at Indian Creek Elementary School in the DeKalb County school system. Christi currently works as an ESL teacher and grade chair in the United Arab Emirates. Christi chose K12 education because she aspired to lead a school and one day a school system that focuses on the needs of all the students it serves. Her proudest moment as an educator came when she was able to turn her principal's vision into a full-cycle restructuring of the school's academic initiatives and curriculum. This resulted in an increase in student academic progress in reading and mathematics. She says there has never been any better feeling in her career than the one where she knew her hard work had positively impacted the academic progress of every single one of the 1,200 students in her school. So let's go right to the interview and hear what else Christi has to share with K12 Nation. Christi, we are so happy you came on the show to share with K12 Nation. I've told K12 Nation a little bit about you through your bio. Why don't you fill in the blanks and tell us what's going on in your life and in your career right now?
All right. Well, I'm definitely glad to be here and to tell about myself. This is the beginning of my third school year teaching internationally. I stay in Abu Dhabi in the city of Al Ain, right next to Dubai, which is probably what everyone's heard of. Since I've been here, I've taught KG1 for 2 years. The KG1 students are between 3 and 5 years old, and they're co-ed, so I had boys and girls in that classroom. And this year, I'm a grade chair, and I teach first and second grade, and they're all boys, my lovely bunch of active boys.
Wow, that's cool. All right, how do you like it over there? You're over in a foreign country. Tell me about that.
It's nice. I love the opportunity. I have an 8-year-old daughter, so I love the opportunity it's given her to live internationally and see what the other side of the world has to offer. I'm in the desert, so I've gotten accustomed to the heat over here. I moved here from Atlanta, so going home over the summertime is funny to me because all my friends are wearing their nice little summer dresses, and I'm grabbing a sweater because 70 degrees is chilly to me now.
Wow.
But I'm enjoying it. This is one of the best decisions my husband and I have ever made. It's helped him. He has a sports company over here for adults, 3C Sports, a little plug there. And it's been good for me.
Awesome. So you say your husband came over there with you, and obviously y'all came over there because of your profession, but how has he done? I mean, has he been able to get acclimated? And go ahead and plug his company.
He's doing great. He back home in the States, he had 3C Sports and Referees, where he provided referees for adult sports in the Atlanta area. And now he's over here. He's expanded it as 3C Sports and Adventures. So he provides sports for adults in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So kickball, and yes, there's adults playing kickball.
Right.
And volleyball, dodgeball. He does flag football as well. And that's going really good for him. This is his third year, and he does adventures. So we go take trips together as expats to countries like Oman and do the Hatta Rock Pool, which is a nice natural hot water springs that we've taken people out to, and do things like water parks as families. So it's really good. It's helped the expat community, people who are away from their family, make a family away from home. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Does he have a website?
He does. There's leaguelineup.com/3C Sports. And then you can find him on Facebook at 3C Sports and Adventures.
All right. Good deal. Well, how many years have you been an educator, and did you always want to work in this field?
I like to say that I've been an educator all my life, essentially, because if you ask anybody around me, I'm a natural-born leader, and I've always been trying to educate people about any and everything. If you check my CV, which is, equivalent to a resume back in the States. But I'm international now, so I have a CV. If you check my CV, it says I've been teaching since 2006, so about 7 years. I took a little time off to be a recruiter, an executive recruiter, where I was pretty much a headhunter. I was able to do that from home when my daughter was first born, and then I returned back to education. As soon as she was old enough to be able to tell mommy what was going on at school, then I was ready to go back into education. And my daughter's very outgoing, anybody who meets Miss Alyssa, so it didn't take her much time to give me the boot and say, you can get out of here, mom, and go back to work. So, yeah, education it's what I've always wanted to do. Some people get into education to be teachers for 20, 25 years. I knew that was never my route. Okay. I knew it's almost my sister, an example I'll give, my sister wanted to be an investigator, but she had to be a police officer first in order to get to be an investigator. Well, I always knew I wanted to be a principal. I wanted to run something. Okay. And the choice I wanted was to run a school. So I got into education, and I'm teaching in order to get to that next step. That's the requirement. And I think it's very important. I think it's important to be able to do the job effectively before you can coach someone or lead someone to do the job. So I think I'm there. I'm pretty confident that I've mastered the art of teaching, so I'm ready to go back into a leadership role, which is what I had before moving internationally.
All right. So you like being an international educator. Do you see yourself staying in the international field, or do you see yourself come back to the United States?
Because of where I'm currently located in the UAE, the school system here, there's the public sector, which is where the local students get to go to school. And there's a private sector where the expat students get to attend school. And because my daughter is getting older and she's a natural-born athlete, I like to move her somewhere where she can have exposure to being a track star or being a rugby star or something like that, which I don't necessarily think is the case here yet. Because it's such a developing country, they're pushing sports now, but we're in our third year here, and I'm not really sure how long it's going to take for that to develop. So to answer your question, I don't know. We're taking each year by year, wherever the best fit is for our family to go, that's where we'll be. Whether I do have the international bug, the travel bug, so I'm open to Brazil, I'm open to Asia, I'm open to Europe, I'm open to Africa, and I'm open to the States too. It's really the best move for our family, for my husband's career, for my career, and for my daughter's educational career.
Well, it sounds like that old saying, the world is your playground, is really true when it comes to you and your family.
It is true, and I encourage anyone to make the move. I always say to people, if the opportunity is open, try another place. You can always go home. Home will always be there. And that's how I feel. I think this is the best decision we've made for a lot of reasons. I've heard a lot of people say if they come over here and they find themselves, and it's a great place to come do that. You'll have a lot of time. No family influence, no best friends who've been with you since you were a childhood to influence you. You get to become who you are here, and then you can go wherever from there. You can take your newfound you wherever.
I love it. Well said. Christi, I believe that after parents, K12 educators have the greatest impact on our youth. Can you share with K12 Nation about a student whose life you've impacted for the better?
Well, I think you made a good point with the after parents. And so for that reason, I think as a parent, I hope and pray that the students whose life I've impacted for the better have been my own child and my own children. I have 2 stepdaughters as well. Okay. So both by example and through teaching them life skills and academic skills. One of the biggest challenges as a parent who's also an educator is not lose sight of your own children and their educational needs. As an international educator, as I said before, my location in the United Arab Emirates, it's pretty high of importance to make sure your students or your children are getting a great education. My child right now is homeschooled, and the other option is for her to attend a private school. So I think that this experience living abroad has definitely enhanced my daughter's life, but I want to make sure that no matter where we go academically, she's still prepared. So I'd like to think that my greatest impact will be on my own children, and by being able to be an example to other parents that, I can be successful in my career, I can be successful in my marriage, and I can be successful as a mother of my own child. And through that example, I can, not when I'm meeting with parents or when I'm encouraging teachers to meet with parents, that I can say this can be done because I'm an example of that.
That's a great answer. Now, you mentioned that your daughter is being homeschooled. Has she been homeschooled since you guys been in Abu Dhabi?
Her first year here, she did go to a private school. It was a British curriculum school. And
Okay.
I think it's a great school. I highly encourage anybody to try that school. They have a daycare center, and I think it's a great school to start in. If you're able to get your child in there at daycare and them to grow with the school, I think it's great. I think it was great her first year here because it's an international school. So there were Emiratis there, there were European students there, there were African students there were American students. I think that was the perfect first year for my daughter. She's a social butterfly,
Okay.
so it was a great social experience for her. She got to get to know a lot of students, a lot of friends and this is a transient population. People do their 2 years and they go, or they do their 3 years and they go back to another country, to their home country. So for that, she'll have friends that she can Skype, which she does now. She Skypes kids who move back to America. So by the time we're out of here, she'll have friends internationally. But after that first year, we decided that it was best for her to be homeschooled. But it's a great homeschool network here, so I don't actually homeschool her. She's being homeschooled by a certified teacher who decided to homeschool kids out of her house. And
Okay.
so that's the option we've taken with our daughter. And a lot of parents have taken that option. Online schooling is one option that a lot of parents do here for their kids who are in like the middle school or high school age. So there's plenty of other options to choose from that you may not have thought about choosing in America because we have the public school system that's available. But moving over here opens your mind to a lot of different routes you can take with your children's education.
Well said. Now, let me ask you a question. Comparing her schooling in a traditional school like in America, do you feel like she's still getting the same quality in a homeschool environment that she gets in a traditional school?
I think it's different for each kid. You have to know your kid's personality. I think for my daughter, I think she would do better in a public school system, or in a like if I took her back home, I wouldn't put her in private school. That wouldn't be my first choice. I'd put her in public school, and then there's so many public school options. Like in Atlanta, when she first moved here, she was in a public school, but it was an art school, so it was a lottery to get into the public school.
Right.
And so that's the option I would choose for her. I would like for it to be a specialized program that fits my daughter's needs, not necessarily the neighborhood school, but for where she's at, I think it's great for her. I think the option that we've chosen for her works well, but if we go to Brazil or if we go to Asia, we just have to look at what's best for that area that we're in that fits my daughter's needs. But what we've chosen right now works good for her.
Excellent. Let me ask you a question. What do you like the most and what do you like the least about living over in the UAE and being an educator over there?
What I like the most is the opportunity. I taught ESL students back home in the States. I was at a public school, but it was probably, I would venture to say, the most international public school. Followed by, I think there's one school in Utah that actually had our school beat. But we were the school that a lot of the refugees, wherever America decided to assist refugee students or people at the time, they would come to our area. They would come from wherever it was and be moved to our area in DeKalb County, Georgia. And so I had over 40 different languages spoken at the school, not including dialects. So we would have students from the same country, and we'd say, "Oh, you've been here. Can you, speak to him in your language? You guys are from the same place in Burmese, in Burma, Asia." And then they'd speak, and they'd say, "Oh no, not the same dialect. Like I'm speaking to him, but he doesn't understand. He must be from the other side of Burma." So that was how international the school was. So I like that aspect. I love ESL and getting to know them and helping them learn the language of English, or the English language. I love that. So that has been great. I love that about being here. And I will look into, because currently I'm in a public school system, so everybody is Arabic speaking. So the private school sector is an option that I would like to look into, because in the private school sector, you have students from all over the world. Dubai is probably the most diverse place that you can come to. So in the school, it might be an American curriculum school, but you'll have students from all over who are interested in getting an American curriculum school. So that has been what I love most about this opportunity is teaching English to students who English is not their first language. Okay. If I would say what I like least, it's just being away from family and friends. You know, missing. I was the first out of my group of friends to get married and to have kids, and now they're all getting married, and now they're all having kids, and I'm missing out on that. You know, I get to go home for well, not even for Christmas, but go home for the summertime, and then that's been a whole year, and you're like, oh, you were just born last year, and now you're talking and walking. Do you know who I am? Like, I was supposed to be your godmother, but I wasn't here.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So that's probably what is the biggest difficulty about being over here is just missing out on certain life situations. Fortunate for us, we haven't had to deal with any negative things that have happened back home, but some of the positive things we've missed out on. But when I go home, I realize home is still home. Not much really changes, and so it'll be there when we get there, which could be 2 years from now, could be next year, could be 5 years. We're taking it year by year. We'll see.
Okay. Now, have you had a chance to really make new friends in that area and, really, feel like it's kind of like a home away from home?
Yeah, being with my husband, having a 3C sports company, it definitely opens us up to meeting a lot of different people who come in. And I feel like when we go back to the States, we can go anywhere and we'll know someone because so many people we've gotten to know here. Even in Ireland, I have a coworker who finished her 2 years and has gone back to Ireland. I told her, Marie, anytime you come to America, if I'm living there, you have a place to stay. And she said awesome. The same thing for me. If you ever want to come to Ireland, my doors are always open. And so that's great. That's a great feeling. And once we leave here, whenever that is, we know that we'll have people and friends, or we call family. They're friends / family all over the world. And that is an experience that can't be replaced.
I got to steal that word from you. I like that. Family.
But don't say Christi came up with it because it's not mine. It's a widespread word that's used around here. So family. They're friends / family.
Love it. Now, Christi, you mentioned that you want to be an administrator one day. You're going that principal route. Do you have a mentor who you've leaned on for guidance in your K-12 career?
I do. I have my principal who gave me my first out-of-the-classroom leadership experience. I'm not even sure if he knows he's my mentor. We keep in touch. But he gave me my first out-of-the-classroom leadership experience when I was at Indian Creek, the very international school I was speaking of before. He had a vision for his school, and at the time, there were being cuts made at our school, and we had reached the 1,200 student population mark. And at that time, we were eligible for a third assistant principal. Well, Right when we reached that mark, they changed the numbers and said that no longer was an assistant principal responsible for 500 students. They were responsible for 600 students, which meant he wasn't eligible for hiring a third assistant principal, which he felt he really needed with refugee students that we had come in who had needs beyond a regular student. So he created a position with his Title I funds, and I applied for it, and I'm very appreciative to him for making me work for it. It was a working interview, so I had to prove that I knew how to do the job. So He gave me a scenario, and I had to show that I knew how to solve the problem with the students' score test being below grade level, and how I would use the data to create a plan to help them move through the higher reading levels and math levels. Okay. And so he became my mentor from that point on. In a time of standardized testing, we were labeled in some areas as failing school because our students were not passing grade level exams. Mm-hmm. And his vision was to show student growth and progress to assist our teachers in differentiating instruction for the many level of ELL students in their classrooms. So although our students weren't passing the standardized tests, our teachers were doing an excellent job of getting them to make progress, but that wasn't being shown through standardized testing because fifth grade, the case was a fifth grade student who came, this was their first time in any kind of structured school because they were in refugee camps possibly all their life, and their first time entering a school system was with us, so they were reading at a kindergarten level. Well, our teachers were getting them to move from kindergarten to first, at least, at minimum, and sometimes 2 grade levels to 2nd grade, but a 2nd grade reading level still doesn't pass a 5th grade exam. So on paper, the students were failing, but in actuality, we knew we were making great growth. So his vision is what made him my mentor. I saw a quote on LinkedIn that said you should hire people not based on their skill, but based on their passion. And I thought of my principal, Mr. Hearn. I think that he made a decision to not just hire me based on my skill, which I was able to prove I knew how to do in the working interview, but also on my passion, on what I believed in his vision and my ability to bring his vision to life. So over the years, when we get a chance to talk, when I go home for the summer or visit, or I email because I like yet another reference from him, I will always walk away from our conversation confident that I can do any and everything in an educational leadership position. And over the years, as I've read leadership books, it amazes me that what he was trying to accomplish in our school almost 5 years ago is exactly what my leadership textbooks are saying should be done.
Wow.
And so for that reason, I highly encourage everyone to be a mentor and to find a mentor. You actually never know the impact that you've made on somebody's life. And in his case, it was just by being a great principal. He really took people. One thing I learned from him is you don't always get to pick who's in your school.
That's true.
You know, you come into the school as a principal and there's already a staff there. Or they move someone from whatever reason from another school and say, hey, we're going to put them in your school. The one thing that I valued about him was using everyone's strengths in his school and to get to know individual people. Not everybody's in education for the rest of their life. You know, not everybody wants to be a teacher and retire at 20. Some people, this is a space filler. And so if you find out, like, say their goal is to open a dog store, you know, one day, and you find out that's their goal. They want to be a owner of a dog shop. You can use that in your school. You know, when it's time to take a field trip to the zoo, they would love to plan that. If that's going to build their resume for their next thing, they'll be passionate about helping you fulfill that need. And so instead of putting that person over the data team, what they could really care less about, why not use what they really love to push your vision in your school? And that's what I learned from him.
Awesome. Now, what's his name again?
It is Mr. Hearn, Mr. James Russell Hearn. So this is
all right, Mr. James Russell Hearn. You heard that. Christi Crump made an impact on her life. I'm sure she's going to send you a copy of this podcast. That's awesome, Christi. Now, Christi, you mentioned a phenomenal quote that you heard on LinkedIn, and we actually met on LinkedIn. Has being on LinkedIn helped you network and helped you in your K12 career?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Being on LinkedIn has definitely helped me network and help my K12 career. First, of course, like you mentioned, part of this amazing opportunity to share my K12 experience with other educators came because we met through LinkedIn. Right. I've also been contacted about my international teaching experiences from those interested in teaching abroad through LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I've been contacted by recruiters for positions that have been of interest to me, such as curriculum coordinator. LinkedIn may be the best social media site for keeping abreast of what's going on in the world of education. You get to join relevant groups. You can keep up with hiring decisions and those making the hiring decisions on LinkedIn. It may be more important to me as a headhunter in my past. I used LinkedIn that way when jobs such as Coca-Cola wanted somebody from Pepsi. I could find them on LinkedIn and then call into Pepsi and say, hey, are you happy at your job? You know, would you be interested in moving to the next level? And so knowing that that's what I used to do, I know that's what other recruiters do. They go, they use LinkedIn, they find out your previous experience, and they can take you from there to a competitor because a competitor wants you just as bad as your current company does. And even if you don't want to leave, you can use it as a leverage point to get more out of your current employer. So just hint, keep that LinkedIn updated. It's great for all types of purposes. It really is.
You're right. You are so right. Christi, if you could recommend one book for our K12 Nation listeners, what would it be and why?
I'm not sure if I could just recommend one. If you're interested in leadership or currently in a leadership position, I would recommend Leverage Leadership. I emailed my last principal in the States, Dr. Campbell, and asked her for some book recommendations, and she suggested Leverage Leadership, and I absolutely loved it. I'm so glad I reached out to her for that book because it's great. I mean, it helps with, it breaks the book is broken down into two basic parts. It talks about one part, instructional levers, so things you can do instructionally as a leader, and then the other part is cultural levers, so things you can do culture-wise. The student culture, the staff culture, and managing leadership teams is the culture part of the book. And then the instructional part talks about data-driven instruction, observation and feedback, instructional planning, and professional development. So I don't want to give away the whole book, but yeah. I thought it was a great recommendation, and I keep up with it. I pull it out when, even though I'm just a grade chair and a classroom teacher at the moment, as a grade chair, I try to put in what I would do. Like, I'm sort of like a miniature principal is how I view my grade chair role. Yeah. So as a grade chair, I do what, if this was my school with just these 4 classrooms, these 4 teachers, what would I do to help them? And so I pull out that book often for that. The second book, I would say, is the First Days of School. It's by, I can't think of Harry Wong. Harry Wong's First Days of School, yes. As a teacher, whether new to the profession or whether you are a veteran in the profession, I would recommend Harry Wong's First Days of School. It's the book I pull out at the beginning of every school year just to remind myself of the classroom management things that worked in the previous years, how to set those up, how to manage my classroom as far as centers are concerned. Differentiated instruction is a go-to guide for a classroom teacher. I got it my first year teaching at Chicago Public. My first job out of undergrad was Chicago Public Schools, elementary school on the South Side. Yes, I think every job I received after that was just because they saw Chicago Public Schools on my resume. I think they thought that was my first job out of school. If I could make it there, then without a doubt I could make it in their school. But that book was definitely a help in my first year out of school in the Chicago Public Schools. So I would definitely recommend both of those books. They're more like play-by-play books. Like both of those books are something that no matter what the situation is, you can go and pick it up and it'll help you with the answer in your classroom or in your leadership office.
Well, those are great recommendations, and I really appreciate that. And it's amazing that you mentioned that first book, Leverage Leadership, because I'm a principal in St. Louis, and our new chief academic officer, that was a book that we are, as leaders, studying, and for all the principals, Leverage Leadership by Paul Bambrick, something like that. Paul Bambrick Santoyo, something like that. But really, really good book. You're right. It's almost like a playbook, and I call it required reading for leaders or future leaders. So thanks for sharing both of those books. Christi, can you name one daily habit that you believe contributes to your K12 career success and why?
I would say remembering to put my family first contributes to my success as a K12 educator. And the second one would be staying connected to what's going on in the world of education contributes to my success. My family is very supportive of me and my every career choice that I make, and that's pretty important to me. My family collectively decided to make this move over here. We showed our daughter videos on YouTube. I know that you did the last teacher who does I can't think of her name right now. Alana Ballard, yeah. Alana Ballard, yeah. We showed our daughter some videos, and we were watching Alana Ballard's videos on YouTube before we came over here. And they were very supportive with moving overseas, and whenever they decide that this isn't working for us as a family, then we'll make a decision to move somewhere else as a family. So that definitely contributes to my K-12 success. When I show up for work each and every day, it's because I know that I'm making good decisions for my family. Awesome. And secondly, I'd say I stay very well connected with what's going on in the world of education. It's also a good thing to do when you're living over here. This is a great educational initiative with the Abu Dhabi Education Council. But because it's an initiative and they are trying to start things from the beginning, they are doing the 21st century learning skills, problem solving, critical thinking is a big thing here. But I don't want to lose track of what's going on in the States and what's the big educational buzz around the world, because I don't know where I'll end up next. I don't want to go to the next place and say, oh yeah, in Georgia years back when I first started with the QCCs, the Quality Core Curriculum. So I wouldn't want to go somewhere and say, oh yeah, I know all about the Quality Core Curriculum. They're like, oh, well, we moved on to Common Core, so
right,
I like
right.
to stay abreast with what's going on. And I do that. LinkedIn is one of the great sources to stay abreast. Because I'm in the UAE, I get connections with people in America. And so my timeline in the LinkedIn is filled with Europe stuff. It's filled with UAE things. It's filled with American things. So I get to keep up with Common Core, STEM, you name it. So that's probably the two ways or the two things that contribute to my K-12 success. Staying connected with both my family and with what's going on in education.
Well said. Christi, where do you see yourself in 5 years in your K-12 career?
In 5 years, I'd like to be running somebody's school. Okay. I haven't chosen, I used to say, principal 5 years, but moving over here has helped me to take the title off of what I really want to do, and more so with the impact that I like to make in education. I'd like to be making some kind of impact in relation to curriculum instruction for all students, or specifically an ESL population. The one thing Teaching Internationally has taught me is that ESL is everywhere. The world is definitely globalized. And I was talking to, we were friends with someone who's a Obama advisor. And he was telling us how he traveled to Europe, and 12 years ago, it was like he was the only African American on the cruise. And so they took a cruise around Europe. And he said now that he's on the cruise, everybody, there were Asians on the cruise, there was African Americans on the cruise. And he was like, that speaks a lot for how globalized the world has really come, as opposed to when he took that same cruise years ago.
Right.
And with that being said, I think having knowledge about ESL or teaching English as a foreign language is very important. So in 5 years, I definitely like to be in that arena. And then I also even say that with African American students, when you're in a low income area, that you're an ESL teacher as well. Because I was reading an article on LinkedIn, and it was speaking of, inner city students and the language culturally that they speak amongst themselves. It's English, but the vernacular and the things that they say is understood within their culture. And so passing standardized tests isn't always easy for them because they don't understand the vocabulary that's used in standardized tests. But as a teacher, when you're speaking to them, you can say, oh, this is like such and such. And they're like, oh, that means the same thing, And so I think I could take ESL strategies, not just in a classroom that has Asians or Africans from the continent of Africa, but I could use it in low income areas with students who haven't seen anything outside of their community as well. So 5 years, to answer your question, I enjoy making a teacher's job easier by giving them useful data to use and enhance their instruction. So wherever I can make that kind of impact by helping teachers, which will help them make an impact on students, is where I like to be. Principal, curriculum coordinator, director of something in curriculum instruction. That's what I'm looking forward to doing.
Why don't you add founder of your own school? That sounds good too.
That does sound good. I used to say I didn't want to be a superintendent because the politics that's involved in it. But now I'm ready for that challenge. I'd love to be someone's superintendent. And then my husband says all the time, I need to open up my own school. So I think once I reach where I felt like I've done this, I've run somebody's school system, then the next step would be to open up my own school.
Wow. Christi, if you had to do it all over again, would you still become a K-12 educator?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember when I was in 10th grade, and this might give away my age, but I was in 10th grade, and computer graphic designing was the thing to be. Wow. And that's what I wanted to be because they were making six figures. It didn't have anything to do with my love for computers. It didn't have anything to do with my love for graphics. That was where the money was at. And I remember telling my mom that, and she said that you shouldn't go into a career based on the money you make, but you should go in a career based on what you would do if you didn't get paid for it. And my 12th grade year, there was a educator class that we were allowed to sign up for. And in this class, we learned about teaching, about education, about early childhood education, and then we went and volunteered in elementary school. And when I went and volunteered in the elementary school in 12th grade, that's when the decision was made that I definitely wanted to go into education. It was easy to me. It was easy talking to. It was something that I could do in my sleep. And I thought the money would come. If it's something that you love doing, the money will come because you love doing it.
That's
so
true.
Without a heartbeat, I would definitely go into education again. And the idea of investing in the students' futures and to know that one day I'll look on TV, or I'll look and the child who I taught or who I had an impact on is now president, or is president of anything, not even America, but president of a corporate company, or not even that. They turned out to be a great mother because they were in my school under my leadership. So yes, without a doubt, I would definitely go into education again.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, this is a great profession, and you're right. There's an old saying, you find something you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I remember when I started teaching in 1994, which that kind of gives away my age, I was making $19,000 a year, and it was definitely not for the money. And now I'm making well over 90, almost 100,000 a year. So you're right. If you find something you love to do, the money will come, and, that will take care of itself. So that's a really, really good answer, Christi. Christi, what is one success quote that you live by?
Well, there are so many quotes, but I currently have this one quote written on a sticky note in my bathroom mirror. I'm giving myself away. It says, things happen when the time is right, when we're ready, when God is ready, when the world is ready. I'm not sure where I found this quote, but it's a great reminder for me each and every day to keep doing what I know is right and keep preparing myself. So this is why, because there's another saying that actually is from Zig Ziglar. He says, success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. So that's the second quote I live by. I always wake up every day knowing that if I do what I'm supposed to do, and I prepare myself, so I have my degree in hand and I have my experience in hand, that when the opportunity comes, I won't get it because I wasn't prepared.
Right. Now, do you have your master's?
I do. I have my master's in curriculum instruction, and I will pursue my doctorate. I'm just not exactly sure at what point that'll happen. Now, I've already started I'm in pre-service leadership. Georgia has changed the requirements for receiving your leadership certification. You actually have to be in the position in order to receive it. So I've taken the classes. The classes are finished. So once I'm in the position, then I can get my leadership certification.
Christi, my final question for you is a big one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Imagine you are a superintendent of your own school district, or better yet, let's say you're the Secretary of Education for the United States of America. If you had the power to change one thing, what would it be and why?
Well, being that this is sort of my goal in my career, I guess it's better to start thinking about it now sooner than later. So as a Secretary of Education or a superintendent, I would want the vision and mission of education to be expanded. When we think about how or why the education system was created in America, we have to consider that the purpose of an education system has evolved. We're no longer trying to educate students so their reading, writing, and math abilities are sufficient to work in an industrial building and create things in an assembly line. If 21st century skills are the focus of teaching and learning, then it shouldn't be done in the same context of years ago. I would want to adapt an overhaul of how we attempt to prepare our students with the skills of problem solving, critical thinking, and collaboration. I sat and listened to a panel of educators who are opening a school in Dubai, and they discussed the vision of their new school. The school will adopt Harvard's Project Zero concept. Tony Little discussed how extracurricular activities shouldn't be extra at all. And I agree that some of the best critical thinking and problem-solving activities that take place in activities we deem as extra. I think the solution to an ever-changing world is an adaptation in the way we teach students. So not teaching students what to learn, but teaching them how to learn. And that would be my first attempt at restructuring things as a Secretary of Education or as a superintendent.
Awesome answer, Christi. I really appreciate you sharing that. Not teaching students what to learn, but teaching students how to learn. Christi, I really want to thank you for coming on the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast and sharing with K12 Nation. But before you leave, would you please give K12 Nation some parting words of guidance Tell us how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, I would definitely say please keep doing what you're doing. Anyone who is trying to make a difference in the world of education will be honored to be highlighted in this type of forum. And as far as reaching me, I can always be reached via email. I'm at christicrump@gmail.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Christi Crump on LinkedIn. And both of these ways are how you can reach me no matter where I am in this world, in this education journey.
Christi, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. I salute you for all the great work you're doing over there in the UAE, and I have no doubt that you're going to be successful in whatever endeavor that you choose. And wherever you end up, I know that you're going to be successful, and I know you're going to be impacting the lives of children no matter where you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
K12 Nation, thank you for joining us on the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast. Please remember that you are the sum total of the 5 people that you hang around the most. So always surround yourself with like-minded, positive people who are only going to lift you higher. Visit MyK12Career.com for links and show notes to everything we chatted about today, as well as resources that will help you take your K12 career to the next level. Are you subscribed to the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast? You can subscribe through iTunes and listen every week to what amazing educators are doing in schools across the U.S. and the world. Please tell your friends and coworkers about the MyK12 Career Radio Podcast. Also, if you want to share your story with K12 Nation, please complete the podcast guest interest form on MyK12Career.com. Have an inspired day, and remember that as K12 educators, we make all other professions possible. Please never give up on your students, never give up on your staff, or this noble K12 profession, because you are definitely valued and you are most certainly needed. Until next time, keep the faith.